Joining us now, of course, she's a living legend, of course, the head coach at Nebraska, coming off a Big Ten championship season, 41 wins, NCAA tournament appearance. I speak of head coach Rhonda Revelle, kind enough to join us once again here on the show. Coach, always great to talk to you. How you doing?
Doing well. Got a nice day here in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Hey, that's good. I like the sound that good weather is much needed across the place. Let me ask you first about last year. When you reflect on last year, because I remember we had you on last year, you were excited. You felt this was one of the more excited you were about a team going into a season where we had you on last fall, and it turned out you were, for obvious reasons, you were proven correct. When you reflect on last year and what you all accomplished, what jumps out to you?
Oh gosh, so many things that really don't even show up on the scoreboard. And it really starts with our leadership of our team really having a desire to have a great season, and not just have a great season on the field, have a great season in the clubhouse, have a great season in the community, and continue to do really well in the classroom. And they just took that very personally. It was really a player-led team. The coaches just tried to help guide them and keep them on a path. And I think the things that the coaches were able to really help with is that nobody on that team had experienced postseason. So there were times where we had to sit down either in small groups or even as a whole team and say, okay, you just need to follow our lead here. We need to trust the process. I know you're not getting as much success right now. This was early in the season as you think, but if we stay the process, we believe that good things will happen. So I think that was the fact that they could trust that process and trust us to lead them in the process was really a big part of last year. And then we got on that 18 game win streak, and that was fun. And then we were able to make a nice run in the Big Ten tournament and have some success there and get back into postseason.
What was it like? You mentioned that Big Ten tournament in East Lansing. You make the run. You're playing Michigan in the Big Ten championship game. Dramatic game, goes extra innings. I mean, Michigan's a hit away from winning, and back and forth. You end up winning it, and you win that Big Ten championship, and you hoist the trophy. What was that like to be a part of that run and then hoisting that trophy?
Well, it was really emotional because, it's no secret that Nebraska softball, myself, others included, have been through some challenging times in recent years. And I felt like this group, they really wanted to be one with the coaches and be one team. And so probably the most interesting thing, we were talking about it as our coaching staff, Eric, at the end of the game, we were at different parts in the dugout, and none of us went out on the field right away. We just had to almost just pause and go, okay, wow. And then there was a moment, there were two things that happened after that game that were really, again, emotional, where there were a group of players, older players, that came over and handed me the trophy. And I thought they just wanted to gather for a picture. So I'm trying to get them all. They're like, no, coach, we want you to know how much of a part of this trophy you are. And so, of course, that got me. And then the last thing was, if you look at our championship where they gathered to take their championship photo with the trophy, they intentionally, I didn't know this till later, they intentionally centered up with the parent and fan group in the stands behind them because they knew that they were such a part of this too. Like, so it not only became one team with the coaches and the players, it extended out to the families, and it was awesome.
I do remember seeing some of that footage. That's pretty creative. Wow, they're pretty creative people there. They got a future like in setting up photography, maybe career.
Well,
That's a pretty good planning by them.
it was great planning, but I don't know that it was so much planning as just living out what was in their heart. So
Sure.
that's what made that really, I really, I never feel like I'm at a loss for words, but I can't really articulate how much that meant to us, and feel like I'm doing an adequate job of it.
It was emotional watching, and then another memorable moment was Coach Hutch congratulating you. And I know that was emotional. You both are tight, and as it turns out, we would find out months later that would be the last Hutch game in the Big Ten. You turned out to be the last head coach to face her in a Big Ten tournament game, in a Big Ten game, because she would announce her retirement in the off season. You obviously didn't know that at the time when you played her, but What was that like when you found out that Hutch was going to step down and retire there? And now looking back on it, you two shared that field one last time. You get to say you were the last. That was her last game in the Big Ten.
Mhm. I know that's kind of like Disney movie
Yeah,
things to me, because I, you know, I thought about it before the game, and I was quite, I'll, I'll call it mushy. I mean, at home plate with the umpires, and I had some things I wanted to say to Hutch, and I just told the umpires, I said, you know what, you're just going to have to pardon me for a few minutes. I need a couple moments, and I just needed to say some things that I wanted to say to Hutch, because I didn't know she was going to retire, but I wondered how many more opportunities will we have to be on the field like this together, and even to be on the field that is her alma mater. I mean, she's a Spartan, she
yeah.
graduated Michigan State. So it was, yeah, there's just so much to that. But she also, she has been a great friend for so many years, and walked with me and us so closely during the summer of 2019, that I think she knew the magnitude of, I would say, coming full circle as a program, but it's not really a circle. I think we've kind of just moved beyond. And so I think I think she really recognized that as well.
Yeah, and I think she probably took it all in and kind of like really let it sink in. I mean, who knows what was going through her mind during that time period, but I only bring that up because I covered her in the Orlando regional, and
Yes.
she was emotional more than usual in that regional. I'll never forget, after the regional, she was hugging and her players, and she got emotional in the presser. I remember leaving there, us as media were wondering like, wow, could that be it? But then months passed, we just assumed, all right, no big deal. But maybe in the back of her mind, she thought this could be it. So I'm gonna take it all in. And the fact that she was sharing the field with you, that's a pretty special moment the two of you will always have.
Yes, absolutely.
Which means now you're the veteran now. One of the veterans, you and Coach Drohan now are the vets in the league.
Uh, Coach Strohan and I have had a few conversations about that, but as much of a veteran as she is, I've got about 10 plus years on her. So I'm the veteran that way too.
You are, and you also have the longest tenured staff in the country, which blew my mind when I kind of was like, wait a minute, like because all today, especially in today's day and age, there's so much movement in coaching, so many opportunities, and various reasons, and you've had your staff together basically since 2009, I believe. That's amazing to have. What does that mean to have that chemistry, have that structure there, that constance? And well, that's an incredible accomplishment.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of mutual respect and obviously a ton of trust. And I think that because we were all trained as educators, I think anytime you're dealing with educators, we're curious and we're always wanting to learn. And I think that keeps it fresh. I just feel really fortunate. And then you add to that, Lori Sipple and I are in our 31st year of working together, 31 years. And that's just unbelievable. And, she and I, we also played here. And I think the last statistic I received is she and I, in one form or another, have been a part of 90% of all the games at Nebraska in NCAA history. I
That's
know.
pretty good.
I know. It's just, it's not really a stat that even exists, but we kind of make it one because it's like,
Who's
who's
going to
ever,
challenge you, right? Who's going to challenge that?
right, well, but who's even come close to something like that?
Right.
Maybe Kelly at UCLA. I don't know.
No, that's pretty impressive. I did not realize that's a great stat. 31 years, but it speaks too about the camaraderie. You all enjoy obviously being around each other, and it speaks of the place you're at, Nebraska. There's something special there, right? I mean, we've talked in the past about the fans, the fan base, and the loyalty they have, and I think that was shown once again last year when you went and make that 18-game win streak we saw during the Big Ten tournament run, and even in the regionals, in a stacked regional you got put in with Stillwater, with Oklahoma State, North Texas. The support was out there. What do you take away from that NCAA tournament regional that you hope that the returners take this year?
Yeah. Well, Eric, as you know, you can't do, nothing can replace experience. So now this group has experience. So they know what it feels like to be in a postseason. They know, even if you take the Big Ten tournament, they know what it feels like to win in postseason. And those were all really close games through that tournament. You look at our regional that we went to, and you're absolutely right. We came out, we had a really good first round against North Texas. And then the next day when we played Oklahoma State, there was a period of time where we actually had to lead. And, Oklahoma State being the veteran team that they were, and also that tradition rich in postseason, they did what they did. And then I felt like we ran out of gas there at the end. But this group this year, I feel like we have more clarity of what it's going to take to not only get to where we were, but to work to advance farther. And if you think about last year's group, of course, we graduate an All-American in Cammie Barr at second base. That's our biggest question mark. Fifth-year senior in Liv Farrell. And then we had a right fielder that rotated some, and then a catcher that rotated some. So, the good news about rotated some is that there are returners in those positions that also play those positions on a rotation. So it's really, I feel like we have a pretty veteran team this year. And maybe we have 6 freshmen and 1 transfer. And in that, I'm really thinking 1 or 2 freshmen would have to really start and play most of the time. And otherwise, we're going to have returners in positions, barring that we stay healthy.
Right, which is always the key there. You mentioned you return a lot of talent from an offense that hit 310 as a team, 76 homers last year. Billy Andrews, the headliner, hit 20 homers. You returned 4 of your top 5 hitters in the lineup. Just speak about your offense and taking that, because I remember last year you were hoping, you felt good about your offense. You were hoping that pitching would take that next step, which we'll get into later on. But your offense was tremendous there, and obviously Billy Andrews was a big part of it. You had a lot of players stepped up.
They did, and we're looking for them to continue to step up. And, kind of our mantra is just do a little more. If everyone does a little more, we're going to be better as an offense. It's not like Billy needs to hit 10 more home runs. It's like she needs to just do what she's doing and maybe be a little bit more consistent. She found out in that sophomore year that now she's the target and everybody's got her circled and she's getting pitched really tough. And now she can just manage her strike zone a little bit better and let the numbers do what they may. And then we've got a series of hitters that were in our lineup all year last year that had good years, like Sid Gray and Maya Felder and Abby Squire, and on down, we go there. But really pleased with our offense and really pleased with the work they've put in so far this fall.
Yeah, and then pitching, you really stepped up. I remember last year you felt like if the pitching stepped up, you could have a special. Yeah, you were correct. It proved about big time. A 2.78 ERA as a staff. Now you did lose Olivia Farrell, who won 20 games, but she's still here because she's on your staff now as a GA. First, I want to start with her, because having her still around, and this after a great year that she had, what does that mean to your team, to your program, that still have her around as a GA?
Well, it's been great. And number one, she's a great human being. Number two, she throws some pretty mean batting practice, which is great. And she's really competitive. So Lori and I can throw BP. Liv wants to pitch to him. So that's awesome. But she also, she and Courtney know each other really well. Sarah Harness, who's our transfer pitcher, she's really connected with her. Their pitching style is similar. So I think that Sarah can bounce some things off Liv, which has been great. And then Kaylin Kinney, who's another returner, really improved as the year went on last year. And I just think Liv has friendships with all those. And pitchers, anytime they can have places of comfort, and I think Liv provides that.
You mentioned Wallace. She returned. Sarah Harness, the transfer from Southern Illinois, big pickup there. You mentioned Kenny. Do you feel you have the same? Can you duplicate the depth that you had last year, where at times you would go 3-starter deep in your staff? You feel you could duplicate that again?
Yes, I actually do, and feel really good about that. I think Kaylin Kinney, she's really ready to take the next step, and she has put in a tremendous amount of work. I think that Sarah Harness is really looking forward to being a part of the staff. At Southern Illinois, she had to carry a lot of the load. I don't think she minds that role, but I think it's nice to know that she has a staff around her. And then we have a redshirt freshman in Kendall Mangle, who, will come in and she'll just compete. I see her probably as more short inning, 2 to 3 kind of innings of competition, but she'll come in and she fears no one. So that's great too.
You mentioned you got a lot of returners, a lot of veterans, but you also have the new faces, as you mentioned. How do you built that chemistry? And you know, because obviously you had great chemistry last year, but every team's different, no matter how many players you return. So how do you kind of make sure that chemistry builds with a veteran team mixing in with some of the new faces there, make sure they blend?
Yeah, that's always the question. That's always the challenge and the goal for each coaching staff and team. So I think that the biggest thing is we try to establish who our captains were going to be early, even though we haven't announced it publicly yet. We've known, they know. So I think the captains are doing things to try to integrate bonding, especially between the 6 freshmen and the 7 newcomers. And then I think this next month, as we get ready for season, it's going to be a really critical time because, you know, that month of practice before season start is pretty daunting, pretty grueling, and you're getting ready to kind of run the gauntlet of the season. And there's great opportunity to intensify those relationships. And the thing that's nice about our preseason is we don't start school until the 23rd. So we're practicing for 2 weeks, 2+ weeks actually, before we actually have to go to class. So that gives them some time to just get together and
That's
be
big.
together.
Well, and of course, you're going to be on the road to start the season. Per usual, you're going to start in Houston to start the year in a tournament there. The Houston coach Vest does a good job of hosting there. They got Virginia in that field. South Dakota State was a tournament. And then Clearwater, you're going to be part of that big ESPN tournament. You're going to see Oklahoma State, UCLA, Virginia Tech, Texas A&M, and Arkansas. All, and then you go to Las Cruces where you got Oklahoma State there again among New Mexico State and New Mexico. You're not going easy on your team there, Coach.
No, the way that we're looking at it, Eric, is if you know the players' goal this year is to go farther than we went last year. We've set up the schedule really nicely for them to have an opportunity to do that, haven't we? Right out of the gate. You know, you have a little success in those first few tournaments, and you're going to set yourself up nicely, not only for building your confidence, but for setting up the RPI, for getting your competitive DNA in a place that it can compete against anybody in the country. I just think that, you know, a lot of people look at that schedule and go, wow, it's tough. But in order for us to do what we want to do as a team, it needed to be tough. It needs to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to Tucson, where Arizona's playing there. You're also playing Wichita State. Coach Brett Benner has a great team there. You're not hiding from it, but that's for sure. You're going to Lawrence, Kansas for a tournament. I'm curious, do you bring up to your team think goals like maybe hosting as a goal, or do you not ever bring that up? I'm always, because some coaches like to bring that up as a goal and motivate their team. Some don't want to even bring any of that stuff up. What's your philosophy when it comes to that?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's best when it's player-led team. They actually brought it up to us. They want to work to host. And so what our job is as coaches is to understand, help them understand the pathway to earn a host. So we actually had a coaching meeting this morning, and it was that very thing that you're talking about, like, how much do we tell them? I mean, we've got to tell them something. If that's their goal, it's like, what's the pathway? But while you talk about the pathway, you don't want to spend too much time there because you really want to stay on the process and on the behaviors that are required for them to perform at their best, at each individual's best. So I think there's a delicate balance there. And I think it's different with player to player and team to team.
I think that it sounds to me like the players also probably got inspired there watching the volleyball team hosting the first couple rounds, and then their Final Four in Omaha, the state of Nebraska just coming in there chanting Big Red, and even though Nebraska wasn't in it. So I think the players like, man, we could just host. We're gonna have the whole state, basically supporting us, which is unique. That's what's so unique about your program is it's not just a region or an area; it's a state that really rallies around your programs.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? You know, and I just saw on social media yesterday, and I thought it was great that they put it out there. Our baseball team in the last 10 years has averaged in the top 10 in the country in attendance. I mean, that's incredible. Yes, we can't hide that we live in a northern climate. So to have a top 10 attendance in baseball, and I don't know what ours is. I haven't kept track in a little while, but I know for many, many years we were, top 20 in the country. I know that in the Big Ten, we're one of the top draws. Of course, Michigan is too. I know this. that last year, whenever we got decent weather, it didn't matter if we were playing here in Lincoln or on the road, there was at least one day of the weekend that we were playing it in front of sellout crowds, which I think speaks well to the Big Ten Conference as well.
I can vouch for that because I would listen to Nate Rohr radio from time to time and hear a lot of roars. I think it was that Minnesota series I'll never forget where you had that great comeback and the place was going bonkers. I mean, but that's a big home field advantage, and that's a big part of it. That's a big part of the Big Ten because the Big Ten had a banner year last year. I think it had 7 teams in the field. Northwestern got to Oklahoma City. How much pride was that as coaches in the league? Because I know there was still some chip on the shoulder, however you want to describe it, from the previous year. And, are we not we're being disrespected? 7 teams in the field, Northwestern getting to the World Series. I think that was a big statement from the league.
I think it was a huge statement. And, the year prior when we played conference only, we felt like, we were handcuffed a little bit with how the RPI was going to play out. We talk a lot as a coaching group within the Big Ten about what do we need to do that's best for the league. Of course, every coach is trying to take care of their program, but we're really trying to take care of softball at a conference level. And what do we need to do to get as many teams in the big dance in the NCAA tournament as we can? And I think that you're seeing some great acts in that. So what are we doing? The way we're trying to schedule, we mentioned before we started that you had Kevin Paga on here.
Yep.
Well, he talks to our group every year. It's like, Kevin, what do we need to do to get our RPI in a kind of a sweet spot? And, he'll talk about what we need to do in our non-con scheduling. And then we have 14 teams in our league that play, so we don't play everyone. So last year we started doing a competitive balance to the scheduling. So the teams that had higher RPIs, there's 2 crossover dates that are really RPI dates that, so like last year we played a pretty tough conference schedule, and down the stretch, we had 3 weekends back to back to back, and all those were postseason teams. And the good news about that is I even knew that if we lost a little bit more than I'd like to, it wasn't going to change our RPI.
Right.
And so even as we went down that stretch, we still stayed, I think our final ranking in the RPI was 30. So we were still in that 30 range all the way through that time.
Yeah, and it was so unique because you were also in the mix for the Big Ten regular season title at the time.
Yes.
So there's that fine line, you've got the numbers, metrics, and the RPI, but hey, by the way, you got a chance to win a championship. In your case, you ended up winning the Big Ten tournament, but you were also in the mix in the regular season with Northwestern for a while there. It was back and forth.
It was back and forth for a lot of weeks. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it was just the last 2 weeks that we were mathematically eliminated.
Yeah, and it just speaks to the strength of the league there. What's your thoughts on instant replay? I know you've used it in the postseason and conference tournaments. I believe the league you'll be able to use it in the regular season, or is that correct?
Right now it's per institution. We hope that it's mandatory at some point in time. I'm a big fan of it. I would say, the more uniform we can get with camera angles or camera quality or, all the things that everybody's talking about. Because I thought when we went to regionals, the camera angle maybe didn't show at sight what those folks that were watching on television could see. So, so I think that there's still some bugs to work out, but we're moving in the right direction.
It's funny. I got to cover volleyball for the first time this year for a full year, and I've heard that same critique, if you will, from the volleyball coaches, where they have, because they have those challenges per game, but yet they the replay when they overview it, it's not the one from the telecast, and they're like, why isn't it being used? So that's interesting. I've never thought of it until I was around volleyball, and you just brought it up the same way, that just because they have replay, it's not. Sometimes it's different than what you get to see on the broadcast.
Well, yeah, I know. It's interesting because we got done with our game. I think I did 1 or 2 challenges and they didn't go our way. And my phone was blown up with, good job on your challenge. And what we saw, you would have had it, but you would have had it correct.
Right.
But it's not what the umpires were able to see.
It's wild. Oh, you never know. Technology, it's just a wacky wild there. But at least we're making progress, and that's all you can ask. We're making progress, and hopefully now it's by institution, and then in no time you'll probably get more used to it and more routine, and it gets better as time goes on. as far as all that's concerned. Now, I mentioned obviously Coach Hutch, Jackie Joseph retired to Michigan State. You got Rhonda McDonald in the league with Michigan, and Bonnie Toll takes over in Michigan. Your thoughts on that with Bonnie taking over for Hutch, and then you've got Sharonda coming in for Michigan State. What that both those moves mean for the league?
Well, I think it's an exciting time for the league because, Bonnie, of course, is Michigan, dyed in the wool, bluer than blue. But I think her bringing in Amanda Chittister as their hitting coach, and Chitty, I mean, I don't know any softball player that's ever worked harder to craft. I mean, it's just been so impressive to watch her. Had the opportunity to do a pre-con for the NFCA one time several years ago with her, and just an amazing young woman. And so I think, again, she's another Michigan woman, as they call it. So I think Michigan's going to be an interesting team to watch. I don't think they're going to look as different as people might think, because it was a seamless transition, and Jen Brundage, longtime pitching coach, fabulous pitching coach. So I think it's pretty seamless. I think they've just sort of, moved through. And of course, Hutch is just such an icon, but they're going to do okay. I'm really anxious to watch a Sharonda McDonald coach team. I think it's going to be an exciting style of softball. Sharonda played at Texas A&M when we were still in the Big 12. I mean, she gave us fits. If she brings her personality as a player to what she does as a coach, I just think we're really in for a real treat in our league, because she was an exciting player, and she plays a fast style of offense. She's going to be coming at you. She's going to go for it. I think it's exciting. And, even talking to Jackie Joseph, Eric, she's really excited to watch.
That's awesome. No, that's great to hear. I'm looking forward to seeing how they can just adds more depth to the league. I mean, that's the key, because you've shown you could get half the league basically in the tournament. Why not get more? And if you built, the depth from, that we've seen it in other leagues, I don't think there's any reason why with the Big Ten, especially with, the TV money that's coming in with the league and the resources that are coming in, there's opportunities to grow here for softball in the league and become a powerhouse right there with the SECs and the Pac-12s.
I like the way you're thinking.
I'm glad you do. I'm very appreciative. The Big Ten tournament this year is in Champaign, Illinois. When are we getting this in Lincoln? That's what I want to know.
Okay, but here's what you don't know. Like, the first year we were in the Big Ten, we hosted right out of the gate. So we're on this rotation. So I can't remember what year it's supposed to be.
Oh my goodness! So I'll give them. That's unique. Usually when you come in, they make you wait a little while. They just gave it to you right away. And
I don't know why that was. Maybe our facility was ready to go. I don't know.
Maybe they like you. They just liked you. I feel like that was a gift. Hey, welcome aboard. I feel like
we didn't win here. I know Wisconsin really liked it because they won it.
That's true, right? You'd like the places. No, okay, that's fair. I mean, nothing against Champaign. It's a great side and all that. I'm like, man, let's get Nebraska to host a Big Ten tournament. That makes sense now, because I was wondering if you've hosted, and that explains everything, that you had to wait till the first year, and obviously you have the rotation, all that. So let me let you go with this. Obviously, as you before you know it, you'll get to start the season in Houston and Boach. What is some of the keys between now? You said you had some work to do between now and then with this player-led team. What are a couple of keys for this team to do to accomplish all your goals?
I think really it's just getting in a rhythm. I feel like we finished the fall in a good place, but it's just getting in a game rhythm. We've got a lot of veterans. The freshmen, it's getting them, maybe their eyes aren't so wide open, just like reducing the size of their eyes a little bit. And the biggest thing that I see in the next 4 weeks of practice is to get into and lock down a competitive mindset, like get really comfortable with pressure moments in practice and in a competitive mindset in practice. So we can translate that right into a game and take it into a game, because we're coming out, like you said, with a really tough schedule.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to seeing your team on the field, especially week 2 when you're being Florida and Clearwater. I'm going to try to make the trip to see you there and see your team and St. Nate there. Don't let Nate roar off easy. All right, just let him make sure he gives you the proper questions there. No, I'm just messing with Nate. Thank you so much, Coach, for always having the time to talk to us. We really appreciate that. Look forward to seeing your team on the field, and always a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Eric. I know Nate will enjoy having a comrade to visit with.